got to a point that I said, well, if this is it, and it looks like this is the end of the road, we gave it a good run. I gave it a good effort, right? There was a quote that I read earlier today by Bear Grylls, and he says, to take risk and fail is not failure. Real failure is to fear taking any risk.
Welcome to Veteran CEO Magazine, where veterans lead the way. I'm Jay Hernandez, and today my guest is Patrick Mate. Patrick is the founder and CEO of Patriot Jeans Co., a veteran-owned and operated denim jeans company. Patriot jeans are made 100% from materials made and manufactured in the United States. And before founding Patriot Jeans, Patrick was a captain in the U.S. Army and also served as a senior leader for multiple defense industry companies. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jay, thank you for having me on. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
As a veteran, you've gone through the transition process from military life into civilian life and had quite a career doing so. But when you first got out, in 6 words or fewer, can you describe what that process was like for you?
Yeah, I'll break it down to 3 simple words: different than expected. And for me, it's meant a winding road, different paths, up and downs, to bring me ultimately where I am today, founding and leading Patriot Jeans Co. So it's been exciting. It's been an adventure. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have never thought it was possible.
So certainly you had an expectation when you were getting out of the military, what the transition would be like. Maybe we start there a little bit. What did you expect it to be like? And then we'll talk about how it was so different.
I received my bachelor's in computer science. So I thought that, I would probably be programming or doing something related to computer tech for a while, something probably with software after I got out of the military. And that was not quite the case. My last duty on active was in Huntsville, Alabama at the Redstone Arsenal, where I served on staff to a 2-star general who was both the PEO for missiles and space, and he was also the deputy commanding general for U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. And so, I basically had two staff assignments in those 2 organizations. And so, somebody once told me, a wise man once told me, that when you don't know what to do what you know to do. And so when I began to transition, I didn't know exactly what the future held, but I knew I was working with defense contractors and defense industry all the time. So it was easy, seamless, and quite natural for me, after I knew my time in the military was up, to transition right into a service-based defense organization where I could contribute in meaningful ways to the defense industry. And so that's what I did. Latched on with a couple of different small companies, and one of those was bought out twice in 6 months' time. And so, all of that kind of shook me up a little bit. And so I said, maybe I should go more to what I'm used to, a larger organization with defined career paths and things like this. And so I interviewed with Raytheon, who was based, this division was based in Tucson, but they did their interviews in Huntsville to try to recruit some of the top end talent there. And so I walked in to an open interview session, and with my resume, dressed in my suit and tie and looking to impress. And after about 5 minutes, what I realized is they were looking for hardcore engineers and technologists, of which I didn't quite have the background for, and probably not the mental acuity it requires for some of those jobs as well. So after about 5 minutes of the interview, I kind of took a pause, and I told the interviewer, hey, listen, I think you're a fantastic company, and it sounds like really interesting work, but I don't think I'm quite the fit that you're specifically looking for here. And the interviewer looked at me and said, I'm recognizing the same thing, but we really like your background. We really like the work you've done and have enjoyed the conversation thus far. So why don't we take a pause here, and we'll fly out to Tucson and have you talk to some other people and see if we can come to a fit. And so did that over the course of 2 or 3 trips out to Tucson, Arizona, and I was hired, with a general career without even a specific job. They said, you're the right person for our organization. We'll find something for you to do. That was very beneficial for me that I could try several things early on at my time with Raytheon, and did some systems engineering and analytical work, became a project manager and a program manager, and then did several years managing supply chain contractors for them. So got a variety of experiences, a little bit of business development, engineering, supply chain, program management. And so that was a great opportunity for me to be able to touch on so many different things in a business that gave me kind of the skill set and some experiences that I would use later on.
Being able to take advantage of all those different opportunities and learn a lot of different things. Did you know anyone at Raytheon when you first applied, or was it just that was your first time meeting the HR person who interviewed you?
That's a great question, Jay, and thank you for asking. I knew that I wanted to get into a company like Raytheon, and I loved the idea of living out in the Sonoran Desert in Tucson, Arizona. I had done 6 months in the military in El Paso and loved the desert life, loved the outdoor weather and the activities, and so I thought, this is great. And so for over a year, I pulled every string and contacted everybody I knew, and nothing happened. I couldn't get even an interview. And it was this rando open sesh at the hotel interview that Raytheon did, of which after 5 minutes I knew this is not the right job for me. That was what actually launched my 13 plus year career at Raytheon.
Hmm. To really know what you were looking for yourself, but also in the company that you were looking for. When I speak to different HR leaders and what they're looking for, they understand there's, very specific things that the job's looking for, but they're also looking for people who they understand that certain things in the job can be taught. If they get the right person in that role, those skills can be taught. So I make that point to the people who are about to transition out of the military. Even if you don't necessarily have the exact skills on paper, there's a lot of skills that are transferable. And sometimes it's knowing how to translate that, but also really making sure that you're making that point where you know what you can bring, you know how you can learn, you know what the company can do, and showing that background and your genuine interest in the bigger mission that they're doing,
Mhm.
and then how you can contribute to that. If they like you, there there may not be the opportunity that you always expect there to be, but there could be something along the way.
Absolutely. You're so true with that. And the thing I always says is there's two things that I think transcend industries, whether you're a defense contractor, a computer programmer, or founding and leading an apparel company. If you can learn and if you can lead, those two things will take you far, right? And so, I learned how to be a systems engineer. I learned how to be a project manager and a program manager, and understanding budgets and finances and the defense industry and governmental budgeting, right? I learned how to manage supply chain organizations. I learned delivery times and lead times and working through challenges, right? And through all of that, I further enhanced my leadership skills because, I was put in front of teams and projects and organizations that gave me an opportunity to apply those new skills in leadership assignments. And so, again, it was a tremendous experience working with a large company like that, and had the opportunity to do so many things, and then building those relationships, whether they were with customers, whether they were with suppliers, whether they were with your team, or whether they were with your direct and executive leadership teams at the company. If you could build those relationships and build that trust, that ultimately take me far.
You mentioned a little bit about how all of these different skill sets eventually led you to the founding of Patriot Gene Co. And I really want to talk about this because what a shift to go from the military and defense industry to Denim Jean Company. Talk to me a little bit about how did you come to that decision that that's what you wanted to do next, and you take all of this experience that you have to then make that leap to found a company.
I knew in my heart that at some point in time, I would step away and try an entrepreneurial endeavor, right? I had that desire. I wanted to build something that would be lasting, something that my sons could step into the industry, step into the business, and help run. I wanted to be able to employ people, and give them jobs. I wanted to be able to impact families and communities, right? So I knew all of that. Take you back about 5 years ago, there was something that happened worldwide that shifted my thinking. COVID happens, right? And, during the COVID era, if you will, it highlighted two really important things for me. One is that across industries, the global supply chain was deeply affected, right? We couldn't get shipments in from overseas on a regular basis like we were, right? And we experienced that definitely in the defense industry of trying to keep our manufacturing lines going, right? And we struggled with that, right? As did every other company that imported or sourced goods or materials from other countries, right? That really opened up my eyes of understanding how big of a challenge it was and how meaningful and important made in America was. So that's number one. The second point was being in the industry and achieving some level of leadership and executive ranks. I would normally go to work in a suit and open collar and Monday through Friday, and that's how I would do my business, whether it was on site or with customers or with our suppliers. Well, during COVID, they said one thing: everybody go home and conduct your business from home, right? And so what I realized in video conferencing, that I could wear a sport coat and a shirt up top, but I didn't have to wear the jean or the pants down below. And I'm like, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to wear tennis shoes, and I'm going to go out and get a good American made pair of jeans and have a couple that I can wear all day every day and just be comfortable and feel good about what I'm wearing. So I searched and searched and searched and searched for a good pair of American made jeans. I didn't want something that was made in China or maybe manufactured in the US, but sourced from other countries, right? I didn't want skinny jeans. I didn't want yoga pants, the stretchy jeans. I wanted something that was rugged, reliable, that spoke to, the country that founded denim jeans, that spoke to the legacy and the heritage of denim jeans, that spoke to the quality and the hands and the communities that built the pair of jeans. And I was deeply disappointed that I never found anything that I liked. So I started to do some research, and that was a catalyst for me. What I found was over 450 million pairs of jeans are sold in the United States every year. And yet, less than 3% of them are actually made here. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's crazy, right? Surely there are other people like me that want to support small businesses, that want to support local communities, that want to feel good about what they're wearing in terms of quality, in terms of environmental impacts. The average pair of jeans sold in the United States travels 17,000 miles before it reaches their ultimate customer. And when you think about the environmental impacts along the way, to shipping and receiving and menu, all of that, it's like, what are we doing here? So more research begat more research begat more research, and I realized this is something that is an issue, at least for me. And I bet it's an issue for other people that would want to see something come and disrupt that industry. The other thing that was encouraging by that 450 million, yet less than 3% stat was that less than 3% told me, okay, it can be done, right? Because there is, although it's minimal, there is a percentage that's being done, right? And so within about 4 to 6 weeks, I threw together some basic research and the basis of a business plan. And the thing that kind of sets us apart is I didn't want to be just designed in America. I didn't want to just be final assembly or final manufacturing in America. I wanted everything from cotton seed to denim jean, everything in between, to include zippers, labels, tags, everything, even our custom shipping boxes, to be 100% made in USA. And so I put together kind of a business plan and called up some friends and started talking to them and said, what do you think? What do you think? And one person introduced me to another person who introduced me to another person to introduce me to another person. And soon enough, I started to make some contacts in the industry, right? And then I took a wild trip out to North Carolina to see. North Carolina was at one point the heart of denim jeans 30, 40 years ago, and would produce millions of pairs of jeans every month. So I went out to the industry, to that industry to learn. I took some Denim 101 classes, understand what it took to design and construct and ship jeans, and started making further contacts, and spent almost 2 years getting a design right and working with a design team from the fashion district in LA and New York, and putting together a supply chain from coast to coast to cover everything we needed, working with denim mills and fabric shops to put the pieces together to be able to do this. And it was tough. There were struggles, but we made it.
Quite a bit different than your military experience up until that point.
Absolutely. But we talked about learning and leadership transcends, right? And so I knew I had a good foundation of leading in the military and how to organize people and lead disparate teams from different skill sets and backgrounds, right? And from Raytheon, I got specific skill sets on supply chain, design and engineering, project management, financial management, right? Budgets, projecting, sales, cash flow, all of those types of things. And I thought, okay, so this would be a new industry for me, but I do have the ability to learn and I have the ability to lead. And if I can connect all these dots, I can put together a supply chain team, I can work with a design team, right? Those are things that I know I've got some skills on, right? Designing missile systems and producing missile systems is a little bit different than producing jeans, but there are some same fundamentals that I could understand and apply. And so putting, my military career and experience along with the defense and aerospace industry experience and leadership opportunities there, and manifesting them in a new way and in a new endeavor and in a new industry was exciting and dangerous and nervous and all of that all at the same time. But, there were things that built me up and allowed me to have some success based on my military experience and then based on the defense and aerospace industry.
Thinking in the mindset of those transitioning service members, or maybe those veterans who have been out for a little bit, who are considering starting their own entrepreneurial journey, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you faced as you were going through that, and how did you really work through those?
Yeah, there were countless examples. And I would say over the last couple of years, there was at least a dozen times where I got to a point that I said, well, if this is it, and it looks like this is the end of the road, then we made it, we gave it a good run. I gave it a good effort, right? There was a quote that I read earlier today by Bear Grylls, Um, and he says to take risk and fail is not failure. Real failure is to fear taking any risk, right? It would have been very comfortable for me to continue in the defense industry and have a well paid job doing meaningful work. But I wanted to take that risk and try to do something, right? And that risk failures. There were times where I couldn't find sources for supply. One specific example, on one of the components that goes into our jeans, I was out of options. And talking with this company who used to do it, but now had moved everything overseas, finally came to an agreement where they said, okay, we understand what you want to do and we want to be supportive. How about we do this? We will ship our production equipment back to the United States and open up a line just for you, right? So to me, this was amazing that they were willing to do this, because this means literally bringing jobs back to America, giving jobs to people and to families, and investing in local communities. Of course, there's a catch with that as a small business is they said, well, to do that, we understand you're a small business and these are the quantities you have the resources for right now. But in order for us to make it worthwhile, we need your orders to be here, right? And so for some of the components for my first production run, I had to order 10, 20, even 100x of what I really needed to be able to get this off the ground and produce in lower quantities, because I'm not a name the American gene company who produces, hundreds of thousands of units every week. I couldn't support that volume. I am 100% bootstrapping this company with my own resources, diligence, and hard work. And so to do that, sometimes I had to meet the demands of some of my suppliers to order additional quantities, right? One other significant challenge is one of our final assembly stops in our production road. I actually had to go in and remove all of my materials from one shop, move them into another shop, and actually a third time over the course of about 9 months before I found somebody who could reliably and with high quality produce what we wanted. And, at one time that meant reacquiring, repurchasing my entire supply chain for my first production run, right? And so those are some of the challenges that we've dealt with, and so there were certainly days where I woke up and said, all right, this is it. I've got to go find a real job. But another wise person once told me is that 100 different LLCs are started every day, right? After a year, that number's down to about 10, right? After 5 years, that number's down to one or two, right? Whatever you need to do, wherever it takes you, make sure you're one of those one or two that make it, right? And so it is cost more. It's been a lot of hard work, but at the same time, it's been very rewarding. It has been amazing to see ideas and dedication and hard work and determination by not only myself, but the entire team, the supply chain, and getting people to root and cheer for you along the way. It's just absolutely incredible. And, the comments from people who would, message me or email me or give me a call and say, hey, love what you're doing. Right. Those things mean so much on this journey. And, I could give you a list of people who have been big fans early on and really supported my cause or connected me with somebody or gave me a word of encouragement. So we're going to keep pressing on.
Part of your story is there's areas where you've come to where maybe you didn't necessarily know what the next step was, but you knew that there was a small step, we'll call it a sub step within there, that could either A, help identify something that you needed to learn, or here's something that I am able to do. Let me at least take a step in that direction. And I think for veteran entrepreneurs, that's one of those things to really recognize is it's a very long process. You cannot underestimate, like you cannot underemphasize how long of a process it is going through an entrepreneurial journey. But that there's going to be so many times you come to a crossroads where you don't know what the next step is.
Mhm.
You've come to the end of what your knowledge at that point is,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you have to stop. Is That's the opportunity to really evaluate what the situation is, to kind of get your bearings and what you're trying to do,
Mhm.
and say, where are my gaps? What do I need to learn to fill those gaps? Who do I need to talk to?
Right.
And then take a step in that direction.
Right.
Or what do I do have? What else can I do on this? And sometimes I'll even say this part. So some of the challenge is just waking up and feeling like, uh, am I doing the right stuff today? Is it worth pushing forward? I encourage people at the very least every day, try to do one thing for it. If you're not sure what it is yet, that's okay, but try to do one thing that you know is uh, uh, going to help you achieve that vision for whatever the entrepreneurial journey may be.
Great words of wisdom in there, Jay. And I would liken this from my military experience to, I was in the 101st Airborne Division. So you, you, you'd air assault, into an area. And then one of the greatest things about a leader's responsibilities is casting that vision, right? Everybody, this is the general direction. This is where we want to be, right? And in terms of a military mission, it's here's the objective, right? Here's where we need to get to, and what the situation is after we achieve the mission. And so oftentimes in the military, the objective would be way over there. But there's a swamp if I was, down at JRTC, or there's a mountain if I was deployed, or, there's something that is preventing me from accomplishing or getting to that mission or to that rally point, right? And so at those points, you have to improvise, adapt, bring in additional resources, right? Let's call the FO. Let's see what information they have. Let's see what Intel has. Let's see if we can get a maneuver company over here or over there, right? Those types of things where if everything was flat and easy, we would just walk up onto the objective. But leadership and learning comes into play again. Who can we bring to bear on this situation to make it a positive outcome so we can achieve the mission? Very similarly in the entrepreneurial field here is that, I've had to, phone a friend several times or make a new friend to phone them several times to bring in that key expertise at various moments, whether they be technical expert or a business expert, or I'm doing a little bit of everything. I'm filing legal documents, I'm filing financial documents, taxes, and all of those things. And so, bringing in the right people to bear at the situation so you can make informed decisions to accomplish the mission, I think is a skill set and a learned experience that the military community can bring to bear. And if you look at the number of entrepreneurs that were launched out of the veteran community after World War II, and you compare that to the GWAT generation of veterans now, it is only a fraction of the percentage of businesses that were started after World War II. And so why is that? We can talk about government regulations and we can talk about this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, these decisions are made by veterans who are saying, I'm going to do this, right? And one of the first veteran mentors that I reached out when I just had a business plan, and I was trying to hit every key point and telling him how I was going to be successful. He said, stop. He said, if you're going to do it, go for it, right? And that just stuck with me, that the challenges weren't necessarily in the details, right? The challenges were having the discipline, the daily discipline, which develops the habits, which develop the character, right? Of you as a person, but also your business as a whole, right? And so to have those daily disciplines that become habits that develop the character or the culture of your organization, that we're going to make it through, we're going to rise above the challenge, and we're going to meet the mission, right? I think those skill sets transcend, and I think that's very underutilized by veterans today.
I have one more question. That this comes up a lot in the for entrepreneurs as they're trying to start their business. It's a very real challenge, and you mentioned it a bit earlier as well. Is finding the capital to really launch and how to do that. It's a huge challenge. For many veterans, that it's either self-funded. Sometimes they'll go out. There's small business loans. There's grants they can do it. There's different things to help get that capital, but something to help support getting that ball rolling. What advice do you have for veterans and service members about, you know, finding that capital as they want to start this entrepreneurial journey?
That is a great question. And to date, we have received no external capital, right? So self-funded the whole way. And the reason why I was able to do that is because I managed my money well all the way back to day one, in the military, met with some financial advisors that said, for every pay raise, you've got to pay yourself first and start investing. And, just those basic fundamentals of being able to invest, being able to save, and being able to give out of your abundance. Those principles really have stuck with me and applied to not only being able to raise the capital myself over many, many, many years, but also, as key tenets of what we do as a company now, giving back, those types of things. So that's number one. And in a manufacturing company, having those resources is critical, right? I can't dash around that point at all, right? You do need significant capital, and whatever you think you need, it's probably at least 2x, right? So I've learned that one also, but there are opportunities out there for, I would say, either to meet with people who can provide the capital, whether it be a bank, an angel investor, other veterans, to be able to partner with for manufacturing whatever you want to make. But there's also things that don't require as much capital. You can get into service related industries, whether it's car washing or dog washing, or, there's hundreds of different things where with very little capital, you can start and initiate something, right? And you can take some of the same skills you've learned in the military, whether that's being a mechanic or attention to detail. Those types of things will transcend. Now, if there's other ways to get capital too. With a good business plan, you may be able to get a bank loan. There are also different companies that you can talk to that may be able to help you with capital. For instance, if I wanted to start a Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out burger, right?
Mhm.
Whatever it is, the franchise availability for funding for veterans is actually pretty good as well. So even if you're only bringing limited amounts of capital, going to get and securing loans for those types of things are very possible too. And there are people who, I've got a buddy who is building a chain of oil and lube shops and is doing tremendously well already. And he's just getting started. And so he's now looking into, a set of coffee shops and things like this. And it just by using the franchise model that's already in place, just following the model. What does it take? It takes the daily discipline to develop the habits, to build the character or the culture into those organizations, and doing things with excellence and learning and leading along the way, right? So there's various options out there that are available depending on what you foresee as your entrepreneurship journey.
You got to have at least an idea for what do you need at least for that first step. You may not have the capital for the entire journey down yet, but I know I need X amount of capital to do this next step. So what do I need to get done to get that part done? And just breaking it down into those smaller steps.
Being an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean that you have to quit your day job or not have some type of steady stream income, right? Somebody told me early on, he said, Patrick, whatever you do, this is a great idea. Keep going. If you have to work at the Starbucks, you know, to put some food on the table, just keep going, right? And so I know, much like yourself, you've got your hats in a couple of different rings. This is very typical for entrepreneurs early on, and some maintain that, throughout the whole process.
Just one last opportunity here. I want to give it to you. Just advice for our service members and veterans as they come to that crossroads in their career when they put on the boots for the last time and then they're switching into civilian life. Last piece of advice for them.
Last piece of advice. I've got several things I'll tell them. One, absolutely thank you for your service to this country. That was the first and maybe best decision that you could have ever made. We as a nation are so grateful for you. So that's number one. Number two is, don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether it's through various platforms. Don't be afraid to reach out directly to me. I'm sure Jonathan will post my contact information or a way to get in touch with me. There are people who did the same for me, whether that's tweaking your resume if you're applying for a job, whether it's talking with you through a business idea, or whether it's just talking about the challenge of going through an interview or negotiating a salary, those types of things. There are people out there, including myself, that would love to chat with you and to help you realize your dreams. The second thing is, whatever you decide to do, there will always be people that will always tell you, oh, you can't do that. There's no way, right? Unfortunately, right? And those are the comments, those are the impressions that sometimes hold the most weight with us, although they should not, right? I'll give you for instance, on social media, we'll have a new post and we'll get 100 likes, no comments, and then one comment, and it's the negative person who's got 3 social media contacts other than, what they're liking on. And they say, this is trash, or, you're not doing it right, or whatever it is. Right. And so you've got to have a true belief in yourself, whether you're starting your own business or whether you're joining a company or a small business, right? You've got to have a belief in yourself to apply the same 2 main skills, learning and leading, that you have already in the military. So get out there and learn and lead. Don't be afraid to ask for help or support, and keep driving on.
Patrick, thank you again so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you joining us on Veteran CEO Magazine.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking with you, and thank you for all of your hidden gems that I'm going to pull away from this conversation as well.
Thank you so much. This is Veteran CEO Magazine, where veterans lead the way.